the war over in Palestine and Israel. Not quite sure whose side you're on, but we'll be talking about both. Stay tuned. This will be a really good one for all of you to participate in. We'll be right back. Okay,
Brilliant.
I'm going to be saying some very controversial things today about the Muslims over there. I hope you don't mind, but I'm not a fan of the Muslims. Sorry, not sorry. Um,
Now, hear me out. Not all jokes aside, because I'll be joking a lot. Because here's why I'm not too concerned about it. But it might sound bad, but just hear me out. Just give me a minute. While we all know that it's a bad deal and there are people getting killed and all that stuff, true, very true.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I look at Israel different than most people, and I don't even consider Palestine to be anything worth my time. I'm just gonna say it out loud. I don't have any um, concern when it comes to the Muslim people over there in the Middle East. I think every last one of them push a rhetoric that is pro-war, pro-fight, pro-killing, and if you don't agree, they kill you. That's just how they operate, and I don't see me having any. You know, again, this is not the three other fellas on the screen. This is me, Marlon. This is my view.
Mhm.
When it comes to Israel, however, I see Israel as the Bible saw them, which is they keep getting rebellious, and every time they get rebellious, they fall into trouble. So they kind of put themselves here.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry, but they kind of put themselves in. This is also part of what's supposed to happen to them anyway, which is why I think we should stay completely out of it and let them do what they got to do. Keep our funds, keep our energy, keep our time. If you want to pray for them, pray for them. But they understand this. They have their own dogs to fight and their own things to play over there. And they brought this on themselves the same way when they got sent to Egypt themselves. Okay, so I just want to put that out there before we begin to go into the political side of this. Again, people may not agree with me, but I'm not saying it for you to agree. I'm just saying it as my point of view. So, what the rest of you guys
Right.
think?
Who wants to go first? I got things to say, but
Yeah, the whole deal in Israel has been going on for years. It's been going on for centuries. So a lot of people get it confused at how long Israel's actually been around. Israel isn't some baby nation like they like to tell us. 75 years or whatever Israel's been around. That's when the UK, the British, actually gave them back Israel. Israel's been around for 3,000 years. King David named it Israel. Jesus addressed Israel in the Bible. So if you guys would just go back in time, you understand that Israel has a right to defend herself and their sovereign nation. Now we can get into the politics of it, of whatever, are they real Israelis or this, that, and the other? That's between them and God. That has nothing to do with us. What I'm talking about is the nation's sovereignty, the same way I talk about America's sovereignty. Every nation has a right to defend themselves. So if a nation comes in and tries to destroy what Israel has or take away from Israel what they have because they think it's theirs based off their teachings, they're going to get what they have to get because Israel has never been conquered and it never will be. So they could put up a fight, but at the end of the day, we know how it all works out, and the Bible tells us so. I'm just saying. I don't know. That's just me. Jay?
yeah. Jay, you can go.
I mean, like you said, bro. It's if they are in fact their own sovereign nation, they have every right to defend themselves. And more often than not, I've seen Israel from a geopolitical position. They've always been the one to react. They're never the ones to go on the offensive, and they're always the one on the self-defense. But they do a pretty dang good job of defending themselves. I mean, if we've seen the 6-Day War, that in and of itself should say something other than is surrounding Israel in that sense. Like you don't walk away from that kind of insurmountable odds unscathed the way Israel did back in the 60s with the 6-Day War. So it's like there's that. So I have to look at that and take that in consideration. But I mean, Israel has every right to defend themselves, and this speaks to a wider, more theological presupposition, but that's not the time or place. So
We're too strong.
It's one of those things that I understand the viewpoints of both the Palestinians and the Israelis, right? The Palestinians feel that their homeland was taken from them by a foreign power, mainly the Western powers, and given it to Israel, right?
Mhm.
So this, historically speaking, this is how they feel, right? Is that these Jewish people came in and took our land, just like how the left views colonizers coming in here and taking Native American lands. It's the same thing. It's the same sort of colonization, superpowers, meddling in stuff they weren't supposed to meddle in with, right? Which is something we see constantly over history of Western powers doing things they probably shouldn't have done, and they did anyway, but now we're facing the repercussions of it. Now, we're 75, 73 years on from when the Jewish state was created, and has the Israeli government done bad things to the Palestinians? Sure, they have. Just as the United States has done things they shouldn't have done to other people as well, right? But you lose all credibility when you invade, indiscriminately bombing, and go house to house, kidnapping women and children and parading them naked through the streets,
Mhm.
right? At that point, it's no longer about trying to, as they say it, seek revenge. You're just doing it for absolute violence and mayhem.
Yeah.
That's not if you were legitimate and wanting to free your state from, as they see it, Jewish rule, then they would have been targeting military targets. They would have targeted the outposts and the police stations, but that's not what they did. They flew in on paragliders to a music festival, rounded people up, and shot them. See, to me,
Exactly.
you lose all credibility, regardless of how the Jewish state has treated you. As soon as you pulled that nonsense, you were done. We're not having that conversation anymore, right? It's the same thing with 9/11. As soon as, like, what we can go in the details of whether that was a false flag or not, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the point is once you target civilian facilities and kill thousands of civilians, your argument no longer matters.
Right.
I agree.
Period.
The same logic applies to BLM, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Your grievances is with the government. Okay. Why attack someone else's building when they're just trying to make a dime when you say that people should be allowed to make a dime?
I agree.
My problem with, and it's the reason I'm staying away from addressing Israel is this. And it's not that I'm not addressing Israel, blaming them. They have their own, like I said, they put themselves in this position. Because when you lose sight of your history, and they do have a history,
Yes.
and you lose sight of your lineage, you end up participating in things you ought not to participate in. And if they hadn't learned anything from the history, whether people want to admit this or not, their history is steeped in religion. And when you've been constantly over decades and decades and centuries been into exile, out of exile, into captivity, out of captivity, into captivity, all because you're a dummy. When you're a dummy again and you forget the person you're supposed to be respecting, what do you expect to happen to you? Foreign nations have constantly invaded Israel because they've been stupid, because they've rebelled. I don't feel sorry for Israel because they brought this crap on themselves. What do you think happens when a normal human being turns their back on something that's supposed to protect them? You run out into the cold.
That's right.
What do you expect to happen? Not hypothermia, idiot? You decide to go into this conflict. You did go into this conflict because you didn't trust the person that told you to trust them. And you decide that you're going to take things on a man-made level. What in the world do you expect to happen? You're dealing with people that don't believe the same things you believe. And you're expecting to establish peace with them? It's not going to happen. Tell me any faction of the Muslim faith that wants peace with anybody, especially in the Middle East. Not one. They don't look for peace. They look for dominance. And if you're looking for dominance against a person, then what are you going to do to them? Destroy them. So why would they want to negotiate anything with you, in good faith, much less follow through?
Yeah.
And if you are the kind of nation that your whole history, whether or not it's God-based or not, have been in and out and in and out and in, and every time you go in, it's because of something stupid you've done, you're back in it again, and it's right after the result of you doing, and mind, people forgot this, where you were starting to imprison people for speaking a certain name. In case people forgot, Israel was doing this, the whole Jesus thing. Maybe y'all forget.
They
What do you
restarted
think's gonna happen?
Yep.
You expect something good to happen to you? Now, fam, this is what you get.
And
the same thing with Palestine. Palestine gets what they get too.
and on them saying, the name of Christ, did they just re-implemented that again? So like Marlon was saying, is Israel's doing it to themselves, and they're going to continue to do it, and they're going to continue to see these conflicts until they get right. Until then, God is always going to protect that land. That's one promise he made, but you're going to have to go through some major ups and downs in order for you to get it right.
The thing about all this conflict, right, is that, and this is the part where America needs to stay there behind home.
Yeah.
First of all, you already inserted yourself in the situation by aiding both sides against each other, and then you're also the one, like a clown, calling for peace. But you profit from both of them fighting, so you're disingenuous from the get-go. And it's proven out by the regimes that have been in charge of America by making false promises to Israel while making promises to Palestine, and then making false promises to Palestine and promising Israel something and giving them a little bit of taste. So they play both sides against the middle. Bush did it. Clinton did it. Barack did it. They all have done it. And Joe Biden has been I think he's the one that's going to catapult things into the stratosphere of absolute depravity.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that has fully funded and left mass amounts of weapons over there for this complication to happen. He supplied Iran. Iran supplied Hamas. That's exactly what happened.
That's right.
And there is nothing more people need to know about Joe Biden other than what just the rest of the presidents before him outside of Donald Trump. They're warmongers.
Yeah.
They've been hoping the conflict over there comes to a complete and utter nuclear event. Why? One, you get the land after those peasants are gone. That's their plan. They've always wanted that section of town wiped out so they can split it between the people that they think matter. They don't care about Iraq and they don't care about Iran. They don't care about the Gaza Strip. They don't care about Israel. They really don't care. They're all means to an end. And the end is full power over that region. They're going to split it with China and any other UN nation that wants to have that land for themselves. They have no concern about the lives lost there. It's all fanfare. The news are covering it. Right now, they're covering it from the aspect of what's going on. Well, you know what's going on. It's been going on for forever. Rockets fired over there and then rockets fired back. And we'll just hype up the fanfare of the explosions and children and all that stuff. But you have no intentions of any kind trying to help the situation, because really what you want is for them to wipe each other out.
Yep.
And you see it now in the inner cities, right? Same thing. We don't really care about black people. We just want them gone. What's the best way? Create the kind of situation where they can just wipe each other out and just watch. We're not going to really help them. We're going to make sure we perpetuate the situation, though. What's going to happen when that happens? We win.
Meanwhile, sensationalizing the outcome and the behaviors of them wiping each other out. Like, oh my gosh, the atrocities. Oh no, what are we going to do? Let's sit down and watch that.
And at the end of the day, we always talk about everything is a rich man's trick. And again, some of you have watched it already. You need to watch that documentary. You will understand this conflict even more, because what the powers to be, they're playing both sides, right? They're funding Hamas, they're funding Iran, they're leaving weapons in Afghanistan. At the same time, they're funding Israel. Understand that. So to them, like Marlon said, it doesn't matter who wins. It doesn't matter who dies. At the end of the day, it's a win for the people funding it. Because if you're funding someone, they're going to play their cards exactly how you want them to play it. So if Israel wins, guess what? Israel's going to do exactly what the West tells them to do. Same with Hamas, Palestine. They're going to do exactly what the West tells them to do, because they're going to toe the line. So everything is a rich man's trick. So don't get so wrapped up about sides, because there's only one person that's overwatching all this. And it goes a lot deeper if you start getting into like the biblical context of it and everything else. There's something about Israel that intrigues these people. And it goes a lot deeper than just land. People have to start looking at things like that. They want this land for a reason. They know the history behind the land. If we can take the land, we can blaspheme the land, we can destroy the land, and we can leave everything about Christ. We can get rid of it, and we can do all these things that we want to do. So Just
Now,
keep your head on swivel.
okay, take a guess. I know you guys probably know that. How
Mm.
many peace treaties or ceasefires have there been between
Multiple.
Hamas and
There's at least been 2 attempts to do a 2-state solution between
Mhm.
Israel and Gaza on the West Bank.
right? And then the conflict came up about the holy sites, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
Mhm.
people forget about that too. This conflict is not political.
Nope.
Whether you want to act like it or not, Joe, this is why I say America needs to stay out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This is a religious fight.
Hmm.
This is a religious fight. This is about mosques and temples, nothing else.
That's
It's a
right.
This has
theological
nothing to
battle.
do with,
It's
with
a-
treaties here and how much economic power this one has. This is about holy sites and how much my God gave me and how much God gave you. And if you don't think that my God is right, I'm gonna kill you. And if you don't think my God right, I'm gonna kill you. This has nothing to do with a treaty, which is why the ceasefire never works, because the
Mhm.
ceasefire is based on man's agreements.
Mm-hmm.
You can't agree if you're both looking at something from such a far distance that you'll never meet. The Muslim God and the Christian God are not going to be the same no matter how many ceasefires you bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? A Muslim and a Christian, I don't care how much you want them to coexist, they cannot coexist. For crying out loud, the Muslim himself in his own book calls for the death of those people.
right.
Like actual death, beheading and parading the bodies in the streets in the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me you're a peace-loving Muslim. Miss me with that BS. Your entire religion is based on violence. Not just violence, but pedophilia. So
Mhm.
miss me with that. You don't want peace. You want dominance. And you want it at the expense of people's bodies and body counts. You don't want anything to do with reaching a treaty. None of that crap. This is why I can't side with Hamas. I can't side with the Palestinians. And I cannot side with the Muslims. Because you have nothing good to offer the world. Zero. I don't care how much you and pay to the wall and pray at 6 o'clock, which is stupid, Matt. None of it matters. Because in the grand scheme of things, you're going after children. And what I see on the street, which I don't see, I'm sorry, I don't see Israel doing it. I don't hear much the news wants to say it's being done. You're yet to show me anything from Israel doing what the Palestinians are doing. I don't see them having a truck bed open with a man folded in half in the back, naked in it, while shooting a gun saying, Allah Akbar. I don't see anybody doing that in Israel. I don't see anybody kidnapping women and children, putting them in cages and stuffing them in the back of their car and slipping hoods over their head and shooting them in the street. I don't see them doing that. So no, this is not something America should be having a part of. They should not have a say in it, first of all, because we have not
Yeah.
had a say in what started the conflict. We cannot intervene on this. It's not a third party thing.
Mhm.
Leave them, let them figure this out. The more we intervene, 2 things happen. You prolong the conflict, and of course, this is what America wants, and I hate to say that, but that's what they want.
Mhm.
And then you stop them from turning to whoever their God is for the support.
Mhm.
And the religious war will continue because you're perpetuating it by telling them it's not. You're telling them, oh, it's a political thing. Oh, it's about this piece of land here, and it's about that piece of land. It's a religious war.
Mhm.
Man can't intervene on this and make any difference. I'm sorry, but they can't.
Especially if you are the type of person that doesn't understand the diametrically opposed theologies between the two groups. Like
Yes.
I mean, Joe Biden calls himself a Catholic, but he has no propensity to understand what the Muslim faith communicates. He has no understanding of what, I mean,
the Jewish faith commit nothing.
Yeah. And so he can't, there should be no say from a East Coast Connecticut grown, Caucasian Catholic to be speaking into the deep-seated theological conflict between Judaism and Islam. It just can't. It doesn't make any sense. So,
well, here's another thing to think about. Okay, so you mentioned something about them not knowing. He's also part of a religion that fostered that conflict.
Mhm.
yeah,
The Catholic Church is like the ringleader in that conflict. They persecuted both sides.
They're the overseers.
Okay, so what say does he have, or the Catholic Church, or anything? They don't have no say over this. None.
And you have to understand, like with this conflict, it's slowly becoming biblical, and I know this isn't a religious, based podcast, but we do speak truth here. And if you look at it, if you read the Bible about the different nations that attack Israel, you just look at BRICS alone. You see all these nations turn their back on America just like that. So if America gets involved in this conflict, which we already are by funding, but if we have boots on the ground, you think Russia, China, Iran, all these nations aren't going to jump in and kill an American? They will.
Yep.
That'll be their goal. So like Marlon said, America just needs to stay out, because even though, everything that's happening is inevitable, it's supposed to happen. Like he said, everything it's lined up to happen that way. You can divert it a little bit by not getting involved. Let that country figure it out. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot of bloodshed. There's going to be a lot of people dying, and it's going to be a global impact, not just over there. This is going to affect the whole world.
People throughout history have always used religion as a shield to justify their own greed. Period.
Yeah.
Like, so it doesn't matter what really happens in Israel per se. It's something that's going to happen. It was going to happen eventually. Just a matter of when is the big question. Now, one of the things that people say is like, it could be a false flag. They should have known about this. Is like, yeah, but you're also giving the U.S. government too much credit at this point. You think Joe Biden is in a position, in his administration, in a position to actually do anything proper? I mean, look how they handled Afghanistan. I mean, that's led up to this situation. They left the weapons that were sold from the Taliban to Iran and then smuggled into Hamas. Then you have the billions that Iran got with deals with the Obama administration, which Anthony Blinken is saying none of that money has been touched. We know because we're watching. And it's like, well, then how did you not know this was going to happen? Right? Because it's a big operation. It wasn't just a couple of rockets being fired into Jerusalem or something. This was an actual invasion across their border. Like, it wasn't a small operation. It took time and planning and money. Like, it's not something that could have just been missed over unless you weren't paying attention to begin with. We've put all of our eggs in the Ukrainian basket, right? And they haven't been watching any other things. But at the same time, it's like, it's not our responsibility. The United States is reaping what they sow too.
And how do we know that all that money sent to Ukraine wasn't funneled to
it's possible.
Palestine? I mean, you know what I mean? That's a lot of money we sent them. And it was like almost monthly we were sending them billions of dollars. So how do we know that all this money and all these arms and all these weapon systems weren't being funneled back for this moment right here in time?
Yeah.
So Forbes had an article, all right? And these are the agencies that have supplied Hamas, okay? Sending money to Gaza purportedly from humanitarian. This is what they always put everything. It's for the people. Humanitarian aid.
None of that money
United Nations Relief and Works Agency, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Do they have one for Israeli?
No.
Nope. No.
I digress. I mean, who cares about that, right? Raises money for Gaza through its website with payments going through WorldPay, part of the Royal Bank of Scotland, the Arab Bank PLC in Gaza, and HSBC in Amman, Jordan. The funds come in addition to the UNRWA's annual budget of $400 million. 7 to 10 billion that the Palestinian Authority has received since '93 has come from the European Union,
Holy
the
cow.
UN, the US, Saudi Arabia, and other Arab League countries. Here's my problem with what is just this right here. Okay, let me tell you the problem I have with that right there. When you tell me that you have sent money to the tune, or at least contributed money to the tune of $10 billion to a pro-Muslim nation in a conflict direct with a pro-Jewish nation, and then you want to come in the middle and talk about peace deals by paying both sides money, you don't have peace as your objective. You have some other nefarious thing as your objective. Because right now, from what I can see, you have sided with 3 of 4 of the major Muslim places in government, in terms of money places, to aid the very people that you're now denouncing. Because you're trying to win both sides so you can come out as the good guy overall when you are the one that aids in both conflicts. The more we put our nose in this thing, the worse off we're going to be, because we're the ones that are actually funding it. And the worse off over there is going to be because they're not going to have any way to solve conflicts without the middleman. And the middleman's the one keeping the conflict going. You see how crazy this is?
You know how I know it's BS is what Schumer says. meeting with the Chinese.
Because that makes sense, right?
The ongoing events in Israel over the past few days are horrific. I urge you and the Chinese people to stand with the Israeli people and condemn these cowardly and vicious attacks. 250 young people gathered at a dance, and the Hamas terrorists took
Emotionalism.
machine guns and shot them all dead. I was very disappointed, to be honest, by the foreign ministry statement that showed no sympathy or support for Israel during these tough, troubled times.
Now, listen, I want people to put things into perspective. Israel has some very high-tech security, right? For any type of air attack, any type of rocket attack, anything like this.
Yeah,
So ask yourself this. Ask yourself, the Iron Dome. Ask yourself this. How in the world did Palestine have people parachuting in to Israel? Ask yourself that.
Paragliders.
Yeah, no one gets in that airspace. So how did this happen? Because it's planned, and I believe it could be planned by the Israeli government too. You know what I mean?
So. Not me.
Well,
I think they literally just, because this does not help Netanyahu. Period.
Nobody
Because
cares about him.
The point is that he's been running on keeping Israel safe, and on his watch, the deadliest attack that's ever been perpetrated by Hamas happened on his regime. So that does nothing to help him. So there's no reason for his government to actually do anything.
Well, I'm glad you have that much faith in him, because I don't.
Well, I don't. I'm just saying it doesn't help him. It doesn't help anybody.
Well, who says he wants help though? Who says he wants help?
Well, who says he doesn't?
Who says he doesn't? I mean, how do you know this guy just isn't another power-hungry politician who causes conflict in his country to maintain that power? Because he probably knows his days are numbered. He knows it. No, there's no way those people could have parachuted into Israel unnoticed.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Here's
the thing, though. The Iron Dome is specifically created to be an anti-aircraft.
Yeah.
You can paraglide in.
Okay, so if you went outside in America and you had some foreign troops paragliding in our country right now, would you just sit there and go on about your day?
If they were flying into a unprotected area where you have ravers?
No, I'm just talking about you're at the park and you see 50 people
technically
paragliding.
That happens daily on the U.S. border, so.
And they're shooting and all this other stuff.
The U.S. border is exactly
our airspace. They're to me. Okay, how did they get into the airspace?
They just went up and came.
Did they have to fly over Israel to get that close?
Well,
they literally had to go over a fence. That's about it.
No, they would have to get those planes close enough to which would have been detectable, and I guarantee the Israel, whoever's in charge out there, detected those things. It's no different than Pearl Harbor. They knew it was going to happen. They knew all that stuff. So it's the same concept was what I'm getting at. How did they not know during broad daylight that these planes were shooting people out, dropping people off undetected, and they let them get that close to a music festival without
because I don't think
anything
it was parachutists, it was paragliders, the ones that are like two-person manned vehicles that they were flying up and then down. So it was literally just like a go-kart with a freaking parachute. That's
what they tell us. I don't buy that. But that's the question I have to ask. I can see at night, maybe at night, but during the day.
Well, they also overwhelmed the Iron Dome system by shooting thousands of rockets like repeatedly after each other. So like their systems were overwhelmed. That's the only way they were able to pull it off.
But my question to Chuck Schumer,
government?
though.
Yeah, I mean, that dude's a shield. He's a fraud. No one should take him seriously. He should not be believed any words that come out of his mouth. And him talking about it should say enough.
Well, here's my question to Chuck Schumer, though. Why are you going to China where they're actively committing genocide?
Yeah.
Like, hello?
Yeah,
you know what? At this point in time in my life, I don't know who's the villain and I don't know who's the good guy. If the government tells me they're the villain, a lot of times I'm just like, okay. For me with China, I don't trust China either. But for the government to tell us that China's doing this, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I really don't.
It's just one of those things. Is like it's hard to decide who's in the right, because nobody's right, because they're all
Everything is a trick.
yeah, everybody's the bad guy in the situation. Like depending on how you look at it, it's all subjective. So it's a matter of letting it play itself out. Now, my question is going to be, what happens to the Gaza Strip after this is going to be an interesting question, because this is an opportunity for, like you said, for them to actually wipe out the Gaza Strip, because it gives them an excuse.
I don't think they'll do it. It'd be too much. It'd be too much blowback. It'd be too much humanitarian and UN and everybody else inside of it.
They're already saying, like Benjamin Netanyahu already said that the civilians need to leave the Gaza Strip because we're coming in.
I mean, yeah, he can say that. He could say that as the leader of that country, but there's a lot of influence outside of that country too. And outside of that country, when they start making threats and they start, giving little ultimatums, he'll change his mind. He'll be like, all right, well, we're going to go through and get rid of all the terrorists, all the military age men, fighting men. He'll do something like that. But to kick women and children out, I don't think he'll do it. It'll be too much. Like, from humanitarian United Nations, they'll all be like, no, we can't do it. Where are they going to go?
That's the shit thing about the situation, is because of how densely populated the Gaza Strip is like Hamas has been embedding themselves in a bunch of civilian areas for a very long time.
Mhm.
So it's hard to, like, this just based on the Iraq and Afghanistan days. It's hard to distinguish who the bad guy is if they're all mixed together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
The
very
other
true.
thing is that Biden won't be able to make a deal anyway. Hamas is not willing to negotiate with the United
They don't
States
want to
as
deal
long
to
as
begin with.
Biden is head. So it's not even like they can. The only thing they can't. Here's the thing. The only thing the U.S. can say is we side with Israel. They can't say they side with Hamas. You know why? Because Hamas won't side with them. If they could get in right now and make a deal with the Hamas to overthrow Israel, trust and believe me, the neocons would.
I believe it.
Because here's the thing, Israel is more on par with what conservatism, which is what they don't want, than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So we have now a conflict that is irreconcilable through America's means. There's no more peace to be had. Netanyahu said it. He said he's going to make sure that Hamas remembers this for decades to come. His retaliation will be epic, because that's what he said.
I believe
Which means
that.
he's probably going to up the ante with the kinds of rocket attacks that's going to be coming down. I would not be the least bit surprised. Hear me out, people. I will not be surprised if Israel stops just short of something close to a nuke. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Now, what does that mean for the rest of the world looking on? Now the world has to decide one major thing. Was that too much? They have to decide, was it too much? And can we still side with Israel?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of how much we want to ignore the book they call the Bible.
Yeah.
Historically, it's happening. Right, like right before your eyes, you can literally open up one of the books, read it, and look on your TV, and it's like right there. It's not even something you got to interpret. It's like, wow, that's all you have to do. This is why I'm saying this is not something, one, we can stop.
Nope.
To intervene on, or even try to placate. Like it's nothing. There's nothing that can be done.
Right.
The die has been cast. Everything has been rolled. It's laid out. It's about time. I'm not saying the end of the world is tomorrow. I am saying what has been started right now by this attack that the Hamas has thrown into Israel is irreversible, and you cannot stop it. How much money you throw at it, how many conferences you hold, how many pleadings you make, nothing stopping what's going to happen between Hamas and Israel. Our job, America, in my estimation, is to stay as far away. This is what we should do. I know it's not what's going to happen, but we need to stay out of it completely.
I agree.
It needs to play itself out.
Just watch on TV, but just stay out. We should have stayed out of the Middle East from the get-go. We should have never had boots in the Middle East for no reason. We have oil here. We have minerals there. We don't need to go over there for anything.
Yeah.
Greed is what took us over there.
It's
Greed is
the
what took it over there.
outsourcing of pollution, you know? The whole green agenda is like, oh yeah, what we do is we'll just outsource all of our manufacturing that's all dirty to other countries, so we can say we're green.
Yeah, and then
That's what it really came down to.
someone else brought up the fact that all the riots going on in America, all the protests right now. But you have to understand, like with the open border and everything, don't be surprised if there's sleeper cells of these Hamas within these foreign fighters, and it's already been documented that there's people from all types of countries that are there. So like I was talking backstage, I was like, don't be surprised if there's some type of false flag that happens in America with these sympathizers on either side. I'm not just going to pinpoint one, you know, either side, and there's going to be some type of, you know, attack on people that are pro-Palestinian or attack on the people that are pro-Israel, and you'll see something which leads up to, say it's a gun attack, which leads up to what? Gun confiscation, because this is a worldwide event. So, you know, you got to see how everything's playing out. Just stay off the streets, stay out of these protests, because I'm telling you something bad is going to happen, and it's all going to be pointed at the finger in Israel. They're going to be like, oh, the reason they did it is because what's going on over there. And it's going to hit our streets. So Americans just need to, you know, take care of your own, take care of your community, and, you know, keep your head on a swivel, because something crazy is going to happen here soon. And like Marlon said before, is going to affect the next election.
I think
Marlon also said something that I wanted to
Go ahead.
touch on.
Go ahead.
Was remember that we do have an example of what Marlon was talking about, is like we just have to decide how bad was or how much was too much, right? That debate is still carried on with us in terms of Japan and dropping 2 nukes on their cities. Like, was that too much? And most historians would agree that it wasn't, because it would have cost more lives to invade Japan than it would have been to just drop 2 nukes.
Yeah.
So it's a
battle of attrition.
Yeah.
And I saw the question somebody asked if Russia's going to get involved. So you got to understand, when, you know, in the Bible, it talks about these different nations all going to Israel. And so when you think about the apocalypse, you know, a lot of people have their different definition of the apocalypse, but I'm sorry, Armageddon. Armageddon is an actual place, and there's an actual battle in Armageddon. So, you know, start looking up Armageddon, see where it's at. Then you can kind of start putting things together. And, you know, I believe Russia's going to get involved.
Russia's already involved.
Yeah,
Russia has played both sides against
by
them,
proxy,
just like America has.
Yep, Russia's going to be Iran, all the major superpowers. When it talks about the kings and with the horns and little horn and all this stuff, you got to think about it. All these kings, Gog and Magog is actually Russia, and they're going to get involved.
You were going to say, Jay Lee?
No, I was gonna maybe say I was venturing into the line of how in America, though, we have this multiculturalism that is rampant in within our culture, and there's a lot of Palestinian sympathizers, from white liberals to even the Muslim Brotherhood, that is literally inside college campuses today, and they're probably the ones that are going to do the most they're going to be the most vocal when it comes to Israel's atrocities, so to speak. And so I think that particular, when it comes to rioting, that has the most potential, in my opinion, to be the ones that create things to happen, that are going to make things happen and affect the daily life of us who want to, you know, own our guns, love our families, and, you know, have a buck to live off of. So,
but it's a carbon copy. What they're trying to duplicate out in the other countries, they have to accomplish here too.
Yeah.
Because in order to facilitate what they want to have happen, they have to create dysfunction everywhere.
Right.
The dysfunction has to occur on every continent, in every country, so that when somebody comes and says, I have the answer to peace, everybody will be looking for peace. They're so stupid, though, they don't realize there is no peace. Regardless of how many times you realize a peace treaty gets broken, you still have this dumb hope that somehow man gonna give you some peace. That's how dumb people are. But they're trying to create that here with the concept that, hey, America will be leading the way in freedom and equality. You've been hearing that for how long now? And then we have to go across the world to bring democracy to everyone. You've heard them say that before. If I can create the need, I can soothe the need.
Even if I don't soothe the need, people will think I have the answer for the need. So they'll come to me. They will open up their pocketbooks. They will open up their government. They will open up their coffers, and I get into everything. But I have to create that. So I have to play both sides against the middle. Same thing you see in Ukraine with Russia. You saw it again in Africa and Russia. You saw it in Africa and China. You saw it now in the Gaza Strip and Israel. It's been repeated. Oh, whites against blacks. You saw it here in America. Left against right. You saw it here in America. Patriots against non. It's if they can play, and they're same bird. Okay, they will play both sides against the middle. Unless you have your head on straight, you're gonna fall for this. Oh, look at that, and look at that, and look at that. We gotta do this. We gotta do this, and just to stand in your ground. You have to stand your ground. But they don't want that. They need the conflict. The conflict aids them in their mission, which is to have world dominance. Most of us know how that's going to end. But the illusion that they can have as many people as they can to agree with them, they'll keep this up. As far as what's going to happen right now in Israel, I'll tell you what my predictions are. There will be a nuke strike on one side or the other. That's coming. Once that kicks off, I'm telling you now, once that kicks off, you will see deployment of not just U.S. military soldiers. All of it. Our full war powers are going to go over there, kicking off World War III. And that's the end of America.
I will put a caveat on that, though. I will say if Hamas launches the nuke, it's going to more people I think are going to support Hamas's efforts than Israel's efforts. But if Israel launches the nuke, it's going to be anti-Israel sentiments that'll be stirred, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So,
and I can agree with that. I mean, if you look at the majority of the world, look at our country, just look around the world, everybody is anti. Just about majority of people are anti-Israel. No, not the majority, a lot of people. So I can see, Hamas, wherever they would get that from, well, they would have to get it from another country like Russia, Iran, China, North Korea, those countries. I can see them doing something like that.
And if we're talking about BRICS, if we're talking about BRICS, much of the BRICS nations are in fact very Muslim oriented in terms of their government structure, their political structure. I mean, Islam itself is a socio-political religion, and so when you're talking about the BRICS nations retaliating against Israel being the one to start the nuke in response to this attack, I mean, yeah, they're going to be the ones to then come forward and start doing the battle because much of them are anti-Israel in terms of their sentiments. So,
yeah, it's that old saying, like Marlon was saying, the minute the government starts promising you peace and security, sudden destruction will come because, like he said, they can't guarantee it. They can't create it. It's always going to be there. Violence. There's a
thing I was thinking about. One of the things that's been happening between Ukraine and Russia is the threat of nuclear war, right? And so when you bring up the idea of Hamas using a nuke, it's somebody needs to break the seal. You know what I mean? Like there is the kind of line that nobody's crossed yet, except for the United States back in World War II. Ever since then, it's never been used, right? There's been times where people have wanted to use it, but never used it. But nobody has used it. Somebody has to be the first one, but nobody wants to be the bad guy in history that used it first. But as soon as it gets used, you'll start seeing everybody using it. If Hamas uses it, then Russia says it's already been done, so we can use it too. And just on and on from there is a chain reaction. Somebody has to break the seal first.
Don't do it.
I mean, obviously, I don't want to be right. I'm just saying, like that's the idea that people have is like the Russians don't want to be viewed as the evil people. They're not good people, obviously, but it's like they don't want to be the ones known as the first ones to use nukes in the new age, right? Nobody wants to be the first.
Yeah, I have my belief on all these countries. I don't believe anything who's bad or who's good. I really don't. Every country is bad. For us to sit up here as Americans and act like, our hands are clean, we're the greatest country. No, we're not. We're no different than Russia. We're no different than China. We just have a different way of going about doing our stuff.
More covert.
Yeah, we're more covert. We are no different than the Russians that are bad. No different. No different than China. No different than any of them. We just have put this title on us as being this democratic society who loves everyone. And no,
We like democracy as long as it works for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
yeah,
Functional democracy.
I don't know. This is just something we need to watch. I mean, from the outside, obviously, but I think this is just the beginning, and you're going to see. I think this is going to cause a worldwide conflict. I really believe within little civil conflicts within the people, which in turn is going to create a bigger conflict, because the minute you start killing either Palestinian or Israeli or Jewish citizens outside of their country, those people are going to get mad. Mark my words.
Yeah, but
and then you're going to start seeing it here, and there's going to be this conflict, pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, and people are going to be going toe-to-toe right here in our own country.
They already are.
It's going to get even worse over the next few weeks.
Here's the thing: is like nobody gets to decide when World War III started. Like that's the thing people don't really get, is like in history, nobody calls it the thing that they think it's going to be. Like the Civil War wasn't called the Civil War until much later. Same thing with World War I and II. It wasn't World War I and II. It was the Great War, and then it became World War II afterwards. The historians get to decide what the war is called. We just know that the conflict is happening. So if you want to say the start of World War III was the beginning of the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, you can say that, or you can say it's the beginning of World War II was now with Israel and Palestine. It could be even with Azerbaijan and Armenia, even, because that's a conflict nobody's talking about. That's been happening as well, but nobody cares about the Armenians.
It's never have.
No, they never have. So it's like there's tons of conflicts happening right now that can consist of a world war. It's just a matter of when everybody else gets involved.
Ask the Turks; they'll tell you.
No, they won't.
So we
never
have so what and this is why I think this will actually be called the World War III, because every single continent that has a world power on it will be involved.
Yeah.
It'll be the very first time I think I think World War I and II, you had a few of the superpowers. I'm talking about everyone that has a military presence will be involved in this.
Yeah.
Every last one.
I agree.
And I don't care how small of a nation you got or a big look. Okay. Look at what Africa is doing. Look who Africa decided to side with, right?
Think about
okay.
Too.
So you have now 30, I think it's 37 or 38 right now countries in Africa are sided and out loud sided with Russia. Okay. You have that many on the continent of Africa. Then you have the China issue. You have America. You have Russia. You have Ukraine. You have all the countries that are involved in the UN that want to keep their place in the UN, and they will purposely participate in this because they want to keep their place at the table of the UN. Every single country that has a military presence that's known will be involved in this, because everybody's trying to get their piece of the pie. And the people that are in the helm of this, it's going to kick all this off, will be the UN. They'll be the one that will dictate strategy to happen. And you'll see the US being the trying to be, I'm the voice of reason while doing this. I'm the voice of reason. Here's a nuke. I'm the voice of reason.
Here's some more weapons.
Here's a nuke too. I'm the voice. That's what we'll be. We'll be just like, I didn't do anything. Meanwhile, we're the ones handing out all the bombs. Yeah.
And with this conflict, you can see other things like Taiwan happening, because when everyone's eye is on this, because this would be a major conflict per se. Everyone's eye is on Israel right now, Palestine. What if you was in charge of China? You'd be like, oh, they're over there watching. I'm gonna go ahead and get what's mine over here. And by the time you can react, it's gonna be too late. So I agree with Marlon saying this could be the start, or the World War III, I think, started a long time ago before bullets.
China would have Taiwan before we could even get anything off the ground.
And you couldn't even move fast.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So while we're focused on Israel, China's just sitting back like, okay, I'm waiting. And the minute the focus shifts and the media coverage shifts and we start supporting that conflict over there, China's going to be like, it's our time. They can't keep up with us.
You notice who else went quiet, and they shouldn't, and we should be looking at them as North Korea.
Oh yeah.
You realize they just kind of faded off into the background. Ain't nobody really talking about what they're doing.
Yeah,
that's not entirely true, because he met with the Russians, and they're going to be.
Yeah, but ain't nobody who's talking about that, Coy. Name one major news source talking about that. Like,
I'm just saying, like he's been in the news. It's just very quiet news.
Yeah,
But
he ain't
yeah,
they may
he's flying
they may making no big deal about that. They're like, oh, North Korea, whatever. He has nukes.
Yeah.
We forgot Kim got nuke. Did we forget that?
Maybe.
Let's do kind of a worst case scenario war game real quick. So we have multiple theaters of conflict happening around the world, right? So
Mhm.
Russia, Ukraine's the obvious one, the European theater. Then you have the African theater with the different nations there that are
Mhm.
running through coups and throwing France out. Then you've got the Israeli and Palestine conflict, right? And then Armenia, Azerbaijan, that's a Central Asia conflict. And then if North Korea decides they want to help Russia in Ukraine, or if they're going to help push another front, which is going to be South Korea, that would be another front. And then you have Taiwan, that's another front there. So that would be the world encompassing theaters that I could see happening. Right. And so that would literally be the entire world at war in different regions of the world. Now, what happens in the United States is going to be the civil split between us and the establishment. That's going to be the other theater, because they're going to stoke as much discontent in the United States to keep us out of the major theaters
Mhm.
in the Eurasian continent.
And I agree. America, stay the hell out of it. We'll handle it here. We got this. We don't need to be over there. We
Yeah.
need to stay here.
Now, imagine the reason why I say this thing with
Yes,
Russia
Kat.
and
I remember.
Africa is going to be a big deal.
Oh yeah, Panama too.
Do not forget that the guy that Biden gave up was also the arms dealer in the Congo and the conflict there, right? Don't forget that.
Mhm.
I think people forget that guy. Okay, don't forget
God of
that
War.
guy. Okay, he's the
Or-
one that's been doing it. So here's the thing: if I know Russia has somebody like that to help arm me, okay, I'm gonna side with Russia. That's nothing new. If you're giving me armaments, I am going to take it.
Mhm.
Especially if you're siding with me against the people I consider enemies. I'm going to side with you. Now you have where every country is going against Russia. Of course, more African countries are going to side with Russia. Oh, they're doing to Russia what they did to us. I bet we on your side now too.
Mhm.
So now you have not just Russia you got to fight. If you want to say Russia's the bad guy, you got Russia and quite a few contingencies in Africa. Remember what happened in Vietnam? We didn't fare so well when you try
Yeah.
going into territories that you don't know.
That's right.
Just FYI. And people who have very little to lose, FYI, they can throw bodies at you. There are millions of them. Okay, that's how they function. That's what you call guerrilla warfare. In case people they forget what happened in Vietnam. The reason we lost that was not because we weren't skilled. We weren't prepared. That's our problem. And you're
Mhm.
going to see that same event happen now. I don't care how many tacticians you got, how many infrared you got, how many birds you got in the sky, and how many tanks you got. You're going to have to fight these people on their turf, and you're going to lose big
People-
time.
Yeah.
People tend to
So you
forget
have
that-
you have Russia, you have Africa, and now you have China. And if China sides, they're not going to side with Israel. Here's why: because they're going to side with Russia.
Mhm.
You're not going to get China to go backing Israel, because there's nothing in Israel for China. Nothing. There's nothing there they want.
Yeah.
Bodies maybe, but that's about it. They want nothing to do with the conflict. They'll come after the conflict like vultures to clean up all the resources, but nothing else. They don't want nothing there. They're not going to participate. You don't see them funding anything in the Hamas. You don't hear China at all, because they have no burden in that fight.
Right.
But they'll come right after, once everything's said and done, and do their cleanup. The problem we're going to encounter, I think, is that you're going to have the wish for America to try and create a peace situation where there can be no peace without war. And the peace that will come will be as attritionary war. So you'll have less people, and they'll have to create a peace because they don't want to lose the last remnants of them. It will not because we want peace. It's because we can't take any more damage. That's how it's going to end up going.
People
In
tend to
my
forget
estimation, anyway.
that this is the longest lasting peaceful era in human history.
Mhm.
Right? Like, I know people say, well, what about all these little wars here and there? It's like, those were intentional wars to pressure relief, right? Just think of those wars as what they were. They were pressure release valves, right? So it's one of those things, is like, it's about time that the big one's coming, right? We can only put off that large conflict and so many grievances off for so long.
Mhm.
It's gonna boil over at some point.
But here's where I would kind of sort of ask the question though, like, because we're seeing two administrations here in the United States literally night and day. One of them in the in the 3 1/3 presidency of Donald Trump, we saw no real conflict. We saw no new wars. And we had peace through strength because he exhibited that. But now here we have an impotent potato of a president who isn't doing a damn thing. And here we have you got Afghanistan conflict, you got Ukraine that happened on his watch, and now you have this Hamas Israeli incident.
Yeah, it's the difference between Neville and Churchill, right? It's the difference between weakness and strength. It's the same thing. It's history rhymes, it doesn't repeat, right? That's just the things that we've been doing for a very long time, is that you put weak people in charge, and that's when chaos ensues. And it's only when strong people step in and step up to take care of the problem do things go back to normal. And then peaceful times lead to weak people.
I think in this case, the strength will be in doing nothing.
Yep.
I agree.
I think this is a time where the strength will be to restrain, not to engage. And you won't see very many strong people. You see a lot of weak sissified people, but you're going to see a lot of people that need to restrain, but they won't. Because in essence, they wanted to continue.
Do you think restrain and close off, or just restrain? Because I would say restrain, and then America's closed. We're not.
You're asking too much at that point.
I'm just saying.
Me, bro, I'm an isolationist. I've been to war, been there, done that. I believe I'm an isolationist. I believe that every country should mind their business unless it gets to a point to where you really need help. Some countries do really need it. But outside these big countries, there's no reason why we should be involved in any of them. We stick to ourselves. We take care of our people. We focus on this country and stop getting involved in these useless wars, which bring nothing but death and destruction. And it just continues on outside of the freaking mental, strain on people that actually go to these wars. So, and then it's just a revolving, it's just going to keep going. So we need somebody in there, a powerful leader. I hate calling him a leader, elected official that comes in and says, you know what? We're not involved. Don't even talk about it. If you talk about it, we're going to fine you.
I would even go so far. I was saying more so, not only are we not going to get involved, but y'all can't come in. Your refugees, we're closed. We're full.
Here, man.
We're closed.
That's what I'm saying.
Fix here.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like we're closed for the next decade. You guys need to figure out yourselves, figure out your own refugee issues. America is closed. We are not getting involved in your nonsense. We're out completely. Right. No immigrants, no new people, no new friends, no nothing.
We do like this. Peace.
What America should have done in terms of foreign policy was let the Europeans and the Asians destroy themselves if they want to. We should be focusing on our hemisphere. We should be focusing on our continent right here. We have North and South America that has more than enough materials to supply ourselves. We don't need to be messing with the old world when we can focus on the one here.
Right. I think we need to do a part 2.
I agree.
It's a robust topic. It really is, because it doesn't just deal with what's going on right now. Because I would like to go into what the treaties were before and how they were crafted and what was said to each side. And when you see that, I think you'll see how much they didn't really do in those treaties. It was more of a not even a loose Band-Aid is what I would call it, over a missing arm. Is what it was. They're like, hold on, here's a little. I don't fix it right there.
A piece of tape.
Here's a piece of tape. Yeah. Treat it like a paper cut when it's a missing limb. I think that's what those treaties were. So, I think we'll do a part 2 on Wednesday. So don't miss that. And probably by then, who knows? A nuke might have dropped by then. I don't know. This is escalating quickly. It moved really crazily over the weekend. Like it went from a rocket was fired to scores dead. 1,000, I think it's over 1,000 now. Something like that.
It's a lot. It's
a lot.
5,000. I heard 5,000 in one day.
There's at least
was a lot.
There's at least 9 Americans that have also been taken captured too.
Yeah.
See, so this, and I'm guaranteeing you now that was by design to include America.
Yep. It was just that German citizen, that female that got kidnapped and murdered. It's just another way to try to get these other countries involved
in it.
Yeah.
Slick, real slick.
Yeah.
So don't miss that. I think we'll cover a lot more in terms of the political landscape of what this actually means. It's not about even. It's not at this point. It's not even about following the money. There's something way bigger than that. This has to go back to all the treaties signed between America and other countries that are coming home now to roost, and it's being waged right. You can see some of the effects right now, based on the Gaza Strip. So
Yeah.
don't miss Wednesday, because that'll be a big one. Too Strong is up next in about a half hour. Make sure you guys catch that. We'll be talking about the Pope and his little scantily clad dance troupe that he had in the Vatican.
Another demon.
Oh, God.
That was amazing.
gosh.
When you see it, it's a wow. I mean, you can't expect much of Dagon. I mean, Dagon's going to do what Dagon do. So
That's true.
Hey, and one other thing, everybody understand what the Biden administration is doing. Yes, we talk about minding our business, right? But you don't throw a barbecue as the president of the United States when there's a conflict going on that has the possibility of affecting
reaching here.
reaching the world, and you throw a barbecue in the grass of the White House. That
You
just
know
goes
why,
to
right?
show you that he's a freaking idiot.
He's trying to tell us that we're going to get cooked.
Hot
You
dogs
think he's that
and
smart?
pizza. Yeah, hot dogs
when
and
it comes to
pizza.
killing people, yeah.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah.
I can see that point.
Like I kept saying, he took out his first family. America ain't nothing to him.
You ain't
That's
lying.
true. Yeah.
So if he can do that, we ain't safe. In any case, Mr. Lee.
Yes, like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see y'all Wednesday. Peace out.
Peace.
Or